Hello you guys, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. We haven't done an informational video in quite some time, so I'm gonna answer some questions that were submitted to me about the military basically, and the questions were about my rate in the military in comparison to what I do now as a civilian and that whole transition and whatnot. I went into the military as a HM. In my opinion, the equivalent as a civilian would be a LPN, which is a licensed practical nurse. As a HM, I would do everything that I wanted to do as a nurse in the civilian world. And I was told that all of that stuff would translate when I finally got out, and even if I only stopped at being an HM, I would be able to get out and be a CNA. As a HM, we learn phlebotomy, which is the blood drawing and running labs and doing tests and things like that. We learned how to administer shots. We learned med math. We learned how to not diagnose, but how to recognize the signs and symptoms of things that patients may be experiencing. We learned a lot of trauma, how to notice the different types of shock, how to do wound care, how to, what else? How to, basically everything that an LPN would do. If you know anything about LPNs, then you know like they do a wide variety of things. I realized that a CNA is completely different than an LPN or an HM in the military. I didn't really know that it was that big of a difference, especially because how it was pushed was that HMs would get out of the military and basically have the CNA credentials to just be able to test out with the board of your state and go forward. That's not the case because the trainings are completely different. As a CNA, phlebotomy is not included in that. There's a lot of things that you're not allowed to do. The CPR portion is not included in that. Just a lot of things are completely different. And what I noticed was that the care was more geriatric focused. For those who don't know, geriatrics means like elderly people. So it was more focused on that. Even when I went to go take my state exam, it was very focused on geriatric care. So it was surrounded by, basically, if you were to work in a nursing home, whereas my military training was in any hospital facility or in the field or an emergency place like an urgent care, like a family physician. It was basically like a wider spectrum. As a civilian, a lot of things that we would do as HMs are things that can very much so get you in trouble as a CNA because you're practicing outside of your scope of practice. As a CNA, we are not allowed, in my state at least, and from one of the friends that I have who was also in the military with the same issue, we're not allowed to do a lot of things. Like, we're not allowed to stick a patient. We're not allowed to give medication. We're not allowed to, I don't know, basically a lot of things you're not allowed to do. And it's a big shift because you go from the way that we were tested, you go from a mindset of like being independent and this is what you're responsible for and you should know how to do this and you should know how to do that, to being a CNA where you're now having to shift to a less independent role, if that makes sense. And there's no disrespect to CNAs. CNAs are amazing and do lots of great work and are the backbone of every medical facility that I can think of. But it's a big difference because you're trained one way and then you're trying to unlearn those things and learn new mannerisms. So I went from, okay, my mindset and on this test is going to ask me, what do I do in this situation? And as a HM, my answer will be, I need to do this, 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 and this. Whereas a CNA, when I took my test, I struggled a lot because I will always overthink. Like, I was 3 steps ahead of what the test wanted me to answer it. So instead of me saying, I will report it to my nurse, my thing is like, okay, assess the patient and do this, 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 and this. I have a friend who, he was full on practicing as an HM, did a ton of medical things while he was in the military. And when he got out, he just knew that, like, okay, cool, I'm gonna be able to go get my CNA. And he wasn't able to get it. He wasn't able to get it, one, because the way we were taught to scrub was completely different. The way that we were taught to do everything was completely different. So I guess it makes sense, but it's also a bittersweet situation. Like, it makes sense in a sense of, like, we're trained for what we will be around and what we will be facing, versus as a CNA in a civilian world, I guess the expectation is for you to deal with geriatric patients, I suppose. But it is very difficult to go from being trained as an HM, or however you want to word it, going from that to a CNA, because it's almost like you have to kind of, I don't want to use, like, I don't know how to say it without it sounding offensive, but it's like you kind of have to, you have to take steps backward. We did a lot of things that now when I look at my nursing curriculum, I'm like, wow, all of this is stuff that we didn't go all the way into, but we touched on. CNA is just completely different. So if I leave you guys with anything from this video, I know it sounds like a bunch of rambling, but I promise you it's good information and things that you need to know. Consider these things and consider, like, what it is that you want to do in the long run. The good thing is, for me, I was going to nursing school anyway. So now I'm just taking all my military credits for my JST and I'm applying it for my nursing school. And the good thing is they accept all of the above. And now I'm just going to go be a nurse altogether. Like, I'm going to be a nurse. The end goal is actually to become a psych nurse practitioner and open up my own practice. But just remember to set yourself up for success no matter what it is that you do. And if the job is not going to do that for you, then walk away from it, because what you gonna do? They gonna replace you anyway. So why waste your time on this job that's not gonna benefit you? Okay? Okay. Thank you. So I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for tuning into this video.